Daniel Bryan came out to address the Miz's attack from last week. But first, he had to plug the all-women's pay-per-view and how proud he is of his wife, Brie. So once we got that out of the way, he called out Miz. Miz wasn't there. Instead, Miz popped up on the Tron. He claimed he was on the set of his reality show, Miz and Mrs. He was of course, in reality, he was backstage. It's like Lee Marshall. When Lee Marshall in WCW, we used to call in with those, was it 1010 321 or 1-800-COLLECT road reports he would do? I'm on the road. I'm on location. He was in the fucking broom closet in the back, probably. So... Anyway, he challenged, Bryan did, he challenged Miz to a match at SummerSlam after insulting Miz and calling him a coward and saying that no matter how hard you try out there in Hollywood, you'll never be The Rock, you'll never even be John Cena. And then he challenged him to a match. And Miz told him, look, why don't you just let your contract expire? Just let your contract expire and go entertain dozens of people in high school gyms. And then he put up a bunch of pictures Miz did of crying babies on the Tron. Photos of some of the people who get upset over the things I tweet, no doubt. That's exactly what they sound like. So that's what they did on this show with these two. Obviously, they're building to a match at SummerSlam. They're not wasting any time. We're not waiting until WrestleMania next year or anything like that. Because apparently Bryan has still not signed a new deal. I expected, I think most people probably expect that he's going to stay put. He does have a wife who works for the company, and I think that has to factor into his decision as well. Although, if I'm him, you know, I'm going to make the decision that is going to make me the happiest. Where am I going to be the most happy? Where am I going to make the most money? He's got a wife. He's got a kid. I don't get the impression that money is the most important thing to him. And honestly, I think he's in the pole position right now because Bryan could leave the company and not make as much money on the indies as he will in WWE, but he'll make a damn good living for himself. You can't tell me that if Bryan leaves and goes to work for Ring of Honor, or goes to work in New Japan, or goes to work in Mexico, goes to work anywhere he wants, that he won't be able to command top dollar. And I don't even know that he would. I don't think he's going to be going out there saying, well, my rate is, $10,000 a match, take it or leave it. I don't even think, he doesn't strike me as even being that kind of guy. So I don't think money is really much of an issue for him right now. Because he's going to make a damn good living for himself wherever he goes. He is going to be the most sought-after commodity in wrestling. He'll go all over the world. He'll have work for the next 5 years if he wants it. I think it boils down to, where does he feel he would be the happiest? Are there people out there that he wants to work with that he can't work with if he stays in WWE? Maybe a lot of those guys will end up in WWE. Nakamura did. Right? There are people that Bryan has wanted to work with who are now in WWE, and he still hasn't had the chance to work with Nakamura. So, look, that could be a factor too. Now imagine if Bryan leaves, and then in January, Nakamura leaves. And they have a match, but it's in New Japan. Can you imagine that? It could happen. It could very well happen. You could have... Now imagine this. Now I'm just fantasy pie in the sky here. But if the rumors are true, Bryan, let's say, has yet to re-sign, and Nakamura's contract is coming up at the beginning of next year, you could very well have a situation where you could have Daniel Bryan against Shinsuke Nakamura at Madison Square Garden in April, WrestleMania weekend, for a company not named WWE. Think about that. You don't think that would be a big main event or a big co-main event to have on a show like that at the Garden? You don't think that would help sell tickets to Madison Square Garden? So as a fan, I'm torn because there's still a lot of names on this roster, in WWE, NXT, that Bryan could work with that he either hasn't for many years or has never had the chance to work with. I would love one day to be able to see a real proper feud with him and AJ. I'd love to see him against, Cien Almas. There are people in NXT right now. Matt Riddle is probably on his way in. Daniel Bryan against Matt Riddle one day. That sounds like a fun match. Velveteen Dream, there's a lot of different possibilities here. But I also look at the indie scene and what's going on elsewhere and in Japan and other places, and man, it's tough to say. Probably for his health, in all honesty, he should probably stay where he is. But you start thinking, if you're him, I don't know, where his head is at. He probably wants to go out there and would love to have the kind of matches he used to have And he may have to leave WWE in order to do that. Look, I said before, and then I'll end on this, though, but I said a few months ago that if I were him, I would be worried that one even minor concussion, he's always one injury away from WWE revoking his wrestling privileges. And maybe he's okay with that. Maybe that's the agreement that he reached with, his wife and the company. And look, you're right. If I get hurt, I shouldn't be wrestling anymore, and I'll step away. And thankfully, that hasn't happened yet. But the company is not going to take any chances here. And so even a, quote, minor injury, what happens if he gets hurt and they say, well, that's it. We gave you a chance. You got hurt. We can't let you wrestle. But now the guy is locked into a 2-year deal or a 3-year deal. If I were him, I would argue for some kind of a clause, like an out clause in the contract that says, look, if this happens, you have to let me go. And that would be almost like a little insurance policy for him, where if something happened and the company was giving him grief again, he could say, you know what? I'm not interested in fighting with you. I'm going to step aside and go wrestle somewhere else. So I wonder if maybe he would ask for some kind of assurance like that in his contract. I don't know. But I'm as curious as anybody to see, what decision he makes. I do think, though, in the end, he's going to stay right where he is.